a nice bit.
Heck yeah. Never stop, forget it if I want it. Gotta make to myself what I want it. So won't quit, keep going till I got it.
Well, let's look at this big giant.
Till I'm on top.
What's going on, guys? Bastin' Up Moffat here, coming at you with a new video for this week. In this week's video, we got Dad here with me. We did not get on any fish this week, so tip video it is. The fishing was pretty dang tough. I tried my best to get on some, but they just weren't cooperating and it want nothing to do with anything we were throwing.
Well, I mean, it's mid-January in Pennsylvania, so it's cold. Fishing sucks.
Pretty much. This time of year, it's a grind. But with spring rolling right around the corner and the Ned rig really starting to come into play, and it can even be brought into play right now because it's a do-nothing bait, figured this would be a perfect video idea to show you guys. Now, I know a lot of you already know what the Ned rig is, but hopefully I'm going to tell you some stuff that you don't yet know with it and that you haven't thought of or haven't thought of throwing it at this time of year as well. So, without further ado, let's get into that. Okay, so first, what is a Ned rig? Some of you may be asking. A Ned rig is when you have a little jig head, either like this or like this. They have a weedless option and a standard option with the exposed hook. I like to judge it for whatever cover I'm fishing in. If I'm fishing around heavier cover like trees and grass, maybe some heavier rock cover too sometimes, I'll throw the weedless option. Anything else, I'm usually throwing the standard option. Even in a lot of the rocks, I end up throwing the standard option just because you get better hookups.
And even in grass, we'll still use that quite a bit if it's not too thick.
Yeah, if it's not too
rip
thick.
it out and get a reaction bite sometimes.
But all you do is you take your Ned head and you take your Ned bait. This one's a Z-Man TRD,
Which is one of our favorites. Just because they last so long with that elastic plastic, right?
You thread it up on there, just like that. Get him up on there a little bit straighter.
You want to get it as straight as you possibly can.
Yeah, you want to get it as straight as you possibly can, just so that it runs right. If you don't have it straight, it's going to act stupid in the water. And
It'll fall weird and do all kind of weird stuff.
The fish aren't going to eat it quite as much. I won't say that they won't bite it at all, but...
Yeah, they'll still get bites, but it's still gonna... You're gonna get more if it falls nice and the way it's supposed to.
But that's pretty much all you got to do. And then you can do the same thing with the weedless option. The only difference is you're threading it on like a Texas rig instead of feeding it straight on. So that would be the Ned rig right there. And then there's a big multitude of baits that you can throw it on. Some of my favorites are, of course, the Z-Man TRD, which we got them there, and we also got the Micro TRD. And these are a brand new option. I really think they're going to come into play more in the colder months when the bass aren't really eating as much and when they're really shut down in the summer and not wanting to eat a whole lot.
Awesome creek bait too,
really
as
think,
well.
yeah, exactly. And they're also going to be an amazing creek fishing bait for like creek smallmouth and stuff. But there's that option. Also have a Big Bites bait Ned. Now they're a little bit different. They're more of a flatter style worm. They're more of a flatter style worm with a flat tail. Has a little bit more action than the TRD would. The TRD is more of a do nothing bait. You can really dead stick it a lot and not have to move it around much. These are made more to look like they have a little bit of action for them and are going to do a little bit better when the fish are a little bit more active and looking for more action out of the fish or whatever they're eating. We also have another Z-Man option here. Here's one that's already rigged up on a weedless Ned. This one is the TRD bug. It's like a little beaver style bait. That really works good in the summer. I've done extremely well in the summer off of these guys, in the creeks and in the river. You can also throw little swim baits on the Ned head and pop them around. They look just like a little minnow darting around the bottom feeding.
Just because it has a little more tail action with that paddle tail on it, that's all.
And this one's a Cast Cray Baits 3-inch swim bait, black and blue paddle tail. Also, if you want to check out any of Cast Cray Baits, use Moffat 10 for 10% off of any of your orders on there, and they will help you out and get a little bit of money off of them. Then, of course, we got some Googan baits. Some of you don't really like Googan, but their Ned is very unique. It's nice because Hear that?
It rattles.
It's got a nice little rattle inside of it, and sometimes that just helps call in the fish to it. Gets a little bit more of a reaction out of them. And they got some pretty interesting colors. They're not too much different than the Z-Man TRD, just a different plastic, and they don't last quite as long as the TRD does.
They definitely catch fish though.
Yep, they definitely catch fish. Caught quite a few fish on the river on them already. And then lastly here, we got the Nikko Helgramite. These I just started using last year, and I absolutely love them. My last video that you saw with the Ned rig on the river, we caught a good many of my fish were caught on this little guy. They're an Elastec-like material as well, so they stretch. You don't have to worry about them getting ripped up. Really, the only time that you're gonna have to replace these is if you lose your whole rig.
Or you catch like 20 fish.
Even then, it's
It
hard
still
to.
lasts, yeah.
Sometimes it takes a lot more than 20 fish to tear these up. Usually, you end up losing it first.
Yeah.
But they're another great option. By no means are these the only baits that you need to throw or can throw on a Ned rig.
You can put about anything on a
almost
Ned rig
put
anymore.
just about anything on a Ned rig, any kind of little crawl, any kind of swim bait, any kind of little Senko style bait, even like little shaky head like worms. You can do a lot of stuff with the Ned rig. You just want to make sure your hook gap is good to whatever lure you're throwing on there. So most of the time it's a little bit smaller style baits. Before we turn it over to Dad here real quick with breaking it down a little bit more, last thing is rod setup. Rod setup that you throw a Ned rig on, you're almost always going to throw it on a spinning rod. It's not a heavy enough bait to throw on bait casters. You're just going to be giving yourself more of a headache trying to throw it on a bait caster all the time. Not to mention you want more of a feel with it, and you get more of a feel with it on a spinning rod. I throw it on my Enigma Phenom Titanium series. Now this is a 611 medium fast action, and then I have a Shimano Sahara 2500 series reel on there with 10-pound test. You don't have to throw it on monofilament. I just like monofilament because it's easy to get and get a hold of most of the time, and I don't really seem to have a problem with them biting or anything. Some people use braid, just have a little bit more of a feel with smaller style baits like that.
That's my favorite way to do it. Braid to a leader is my favorite.
My other rod is set up with braid. I also throw Neds on that quite a good bit as well. And now we're going to turn it over to Dad, and he's going to tell you when it's good to fish this.
So we're going to talk specifically early spring. You can fish this all year long and catch fish from 30-degree water to 88-degree water or more, and you're going to catch fish with this bait because it's just that versatile. But what we're going to talk about today is like a juicy tip for this early spring time, and when the water's still freaking like in the 30s and 40s, and fish are just starting to move up because you're starting to get some early season warming trends, and that water's starting to move out of that 30s into those 40-degree ranges, and the fish start to feel that. They're going to make a move shallow that most people don't capitalize on, and it's usually that first couple days when you get that warm spell that you get like 4 or 5 days where it's warming and everybody's going out fishing, and they're like, man, it's a great day to be fishing, but I haven't caught much. And it's a lot of times you're failing to look up shallow enough to see those fish, and you can literally find fish in brush piles and rock piles in 2 feet of water or less when that water's still pretty cold out and you don't realize. But we've done this many times out at Marburg and other lakes, and those fish just don't seem to react to anything, and they don't want to bite anything because they're so skittish when they first come in like that. And this Ned rig was what gets it done for us most of the time. You can flip a jig in there. You can sometimes maybe get one of those fish to bite, but it's rare. But they just kind of either run away or shy off. But if you pass this Ned rig in there and you get it a little bit past them and work it up to them, they almost eat it every time. So it's just one of them baits that the fish see it and they're like, oh, it's like an M&M that you can't resist.
And like he was saying, most people don't capitalize on it soon enough.
Yeah, everybody thinks about fishing it in the spring, like April, when this is an awesome bait in April for bedding fish or fish that are moving up to make beds. But we're talking about those fish that they're not even ready to do that yet. And these are some of the biggest fish of the year that you can get like maybe your personal best on for that day, or the year, and maybe even multiple personal bests if you can capitalize on this in the right times.
Or even Marburg smallmouth. Smallmouth
Absolutely
come up before largemouth do. They start spawning before largemouth do. So now, yes, some will typically still be spawning when the largemouth are up and spawning as well, since they both come up at such a similar temperature. But smallmouth will start just a little bit sooner and a little bit colder of water than largemouth do. So you can really catch some nice smallmouth on this that time of year.
Yeah, you absolutely find smallmouth.
And like he was saying, some people don't do this early enough. I had some of that struggle last year where I was fishing in a lot of the deeper water trying to target deep fish that hadn't come up yet, when I should have been targeting the shallower water, and there was a lot of fish to be caught shallow. I wasn't catching anything deep hardly, and as soon as we switched and made that switch to go shallow and start fishing the Ned, we did pretty darn well.
Well, and you're not the only one that does that. There's a lot of guys who go out there and be like, I need to fish in this 15 to 20 foot range or that 10 to 15 foot range, and think that the fish are still sitting out here waiting to come in, and they miss that whole group of fish that are up on the bank. That, I mean, it's not tons of fish, but the ones that are there are big.
Yep, the big ones usually always are the first to come up and do the spawn and do their thing.
From our experience, the big fish
littler
spawn
fish
early.
come up last usually. So usually when we're really catching what you see as the big time of the spawn, or whatever you want to call it,
Those are the males most of the time.
those are mostly the males and mostly the smaller fish.
Yes,
you
you'll
want
get
a
into
good
those
chance at
5-pounders,
catching
but-
that 6, possibly 7, 8 pound fish.
This is the time to do it.
This is the time of the year to do it.
Okay, so we're going to talk about where to target these fish at. So what we're looking for is either rock cover, some kind of rock structures, and our favorite thing is wood. Like once that temperature starts going up, you have the warm days, even though the water's still cold, that wood is like a radiator going into the water. It's receiving all that sunlight and warm air temperature, and it just radiates into the water, and those fish like flock to it like a magnet, and that's what helps them in this early springtime. And they go in there and just hang around that stuff because it is warm. Any generic wood cover or like cement structure or rock structure, rock holds warmth even in the middle of winter like this during the days. You know, rip wrap and stuff like that, it radiates heat all day long when the sun's shining. So that's the same thing with wood. And when those warm days start to come and you're still like, well, the water's still really cold, well, there's still fish really shallow. And that's the thing you want to remember and think about with this technique here and this tip that we're giving you today, because that's really the key to it, is that there's fish there that people are missing, and it's some of the biggest fish that you may catch.
And as always, fish that aren't being fished for are a lot easier to catch than fish that are constantly being hammered.
Absolutely. There's you know, when I've found this technique and this kind of little deal with these fish coming shallow like that, there's literally nobody fishing for them, and it was a game changer for us in a lot of ways. We did very good in some tournaments doing that. So, you know, it's one thing we're giving out our juicy tournament winning tips here, but we like to help everybody out, and we like to see everybody catching fish. So
Absolutely. Some people are like, wow, why are you giving everybody all these tips and all this information, and you went out there and worked so hard to figure all that out? Well, like he said, we just want to help you guys out and help you guys do better on the water. Marburg and a lot of the other lakes are really nice lakes around here, and especially Marburg, everybody calls the Dead Sea, and that couldn't be further from the truth. It's
full of big fish. They're just
full-
not easy to catch sometimes.
Yeah. It's a tough lake. It gets a lot of pressure and it's super clear. But there's some really big fish, and in my opinion, around this area, it's got the biggest size bass and quality of bass in this area for sure, other than the Susquehanna. And even on the Susquehanna, you're not catching 4, 5, 6 pounders that terribly often. Marburg has a good
Large
portion
population of them. But this will work in every freaking lake, like all around the country, like whether it's dirty, clean, shallow, whatever.
Yep, it'll work everywhere, no matter where you're at, north, south, east, west.
If you can find shallow wood
And it
cover or
will
rock.
also work all year round. The Ned Rig doesn't have any discrimination on when it works best or anything like that.
Yeah.
It will literally work for you the entire year.
Yeah, this is
These are just our favorite
a
times
true
to throw
dummy
it.
bait. That if you wanted to say there was a dummy bait out there, this would be it. Because I mean, you don't really have to know anything to fish this Ned Rig and catch fish. You can throw it out there, drag it in, hop it in, shake it in. I mean, personally, I like to fish it like in the spring. I like to just throw it over there to those fish, past them, bring it into them very carefully and cautiously, and just let it sit there for a little while. And every now and then, I'll just shake it. And I don't shake the bait much. I just shake my rod tip, and all that does is make the tail just barely move up and down like this. Very subtle action in the spring when we're talking about this technique here. Other times of year, it's like you can do almost anything with it. You can hop it up really, really quick and like snap it and let it fall and get reaction bites. It's just amazing, easy bait to fish, and you can catch fish anytime, anywhere with it.
Yep, and with all that being said, that is pretty much going to conclude this video for y'all. If you enjoyed this, please make sure you hit that like and subscribe button. Stay tuned for the next video, because we're going to keep coming at you every Thursday. And make sure you get entered into my giveaway. We're going to be giving away a bait cast reel, either a Shimano SLX or a Proficiency ATK Crazy, as soon as we hit 1,000 subscribers. So get entered into that giveaway by leaving a comment, by being subscribed to the channel, by liking this video, and you can get an extra entry by sharing it on one of your social media pages and tagging me in it. You make sure you tag me in it, or I won't know that you shared it. And we'll see you next Thursday, guys. See ya!